What's going on, everybody? Welcome into this brand new PTN Digital Show. I'm really excited to share with you. It's something I've been working on for the last couple of weeks. If you know me at all, you know that I love baseball, and this is the Rubber Match. It's a brand new show coming at you every single week. We will have plenty of special guests coming in to break down Arkansas baseball, Arkansas softball, and SEC baseball and softball as a whole. And hey, we might even talk about the Cubs, because if you know me, I'm just a massive Cubs fan, and I love to rant about the Cubs. So that'll be all coming up. We'll have a little bit on that. But I'm really excited because the first episode has none other than Dudley Dawson. He joins the show. That's coming up in just a little bit. But I want to show you guys all the really cool features that we're going to have, that I'm going to walk you through, that we'll show you every week. It's kind of the same things if you've seen any of our digital baseball shows in the past. It's got some of the similar tastes of that, but just a little bit of a different spin on it. Again, being able to do this by myself is something I'm really looking forward to. And again, this show will be interview driven. You will not be listening to me talk for 20 to 25 minutes. I don't think anybody in the planet of the earth wants to do that. Not even my parents. They love me, but they don't want to listen to me talk for 20 to 25 minutes because it is a lot, and I'm a lot for someone to handle, and that's okay. But we'll kind of run through some of the really cool features that we have on this show. Obviously, it's called The Rubber Match. It'll be a weekly baseball, softball podcast focused on the Arkansas Razorbacks specifically, but we'll get into a little bit more. We'll have special guests. Those are all to be announced. But some of the other cool things we'll have is we'll have our Gabe Gackle K count. I couldn't find a great Zach Root picture, so we're sticking with Gabe Gackle. 34 Ks on the season. He's pitched really well over the last 2 weeks, finally finding his footing. But again, we'll talk about him in a little bit with our special guest. We have our field view, as always. This one, a really cool one, to show you what the Arkansas lineup is going to look like. And this is DVH's lineup. This is what he's been set with the last couple of weeks. It really took him a few weeks when he figured it out. This is what it was. Davlon Thomas, Jr., Maxwell in the outfield. Your infield, Cam Kozel, Nolan Souza, Vahiva Aloy, Brent Iredale, Zach Root, your Friday night starter, Ryder Helfrich behind the plate, Kahia Aloy, your DH. And some people on the internet, Perfect Game specifically, have Aloy as a first baseman in their Mid-American, middle of the season All-American teams, but I disagree. He is a DH. I don't know why they put him there, but that's okay. We're not picky. We're not choosers. And the last cool feature we have, this is our dinger count. It is going to be the Aloy brothers, not one specific player, but the two brothers. I'll change this picture week in and week out. This one was a really cool one of Kahio. Total count right now, 18 dingers between both Vahiva and Kahio. They are 1 and 2 and 3 on the team, somewhere in there. So they are hitting really well, and they're really fun to watch. And when you have to face them back-to-back, that's no fun. That's a pitcher's absolute nightmare. But again, like I said, here on the Rubber Match, we are going to do so much fun things, so many fun things. Whatever grammar you want to choose, we can do that. You can call it as it is. But on the Rubber Match, this is what we're talking about. It is all about baseball and softball. And now it's time for our first guest. Excited to have on Dudley Dawson from Hogville.net. Take a look at the interview. All right, excited to have first guest on the show, none other than Hogville.net's own Dudley Dawson. Dudley, thanks for taking some time. Let's talk a little bit about baseball and softball, but first and foremost, background looks great. Looks like you're at Baum Walker, but it's a little bit of a nicer day behind you than what it might be tomorrow.
Yeah, go have some weather, but we'll get through it. I'm sure they'll get the 3 games in. It just may not be a time schedule.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Right now, it's scheduled first pitch tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. But again, talking to some of the meteorologists, and we'll go over this a little bit later, it is supposed to pour from 3 to 10. So who knows if they're going to get this game in. But let's talk about the team. And we'll talk about the team leading into the season so far, because that's something that I think I'm curious for you as somebody who's been covering Arkansas for a long time. When you look at this baseball team, what really stands out to you? What about this team is different from maybe years past?
I think the versatility. They have a lot more players that they can plug into different spots, be it in the batting lineup, be it out there defensively. Obviously in these day and age of college landscape, you're revamping the roster each year. Coach Van Horn made an effort that he was definitely going to revamp the team. That's what he did in this way. They can steal more bases, although that hadn't been one of their big things. But the thing that I think is maybe better than anything is how they're going from first to third, and in some cases, first to home.
Yeah, and it's something that's really impressive of just the team's ability to run and to move. And really, we haven't seen a lot of hit and runs this year because just of how well that they have the ability to put the ball in play. It's something we saw last year towards the end of the season, trying a little bit more hit and runs, trying to get the team going. But this year, again, we've kind of seen different variations of the lineup the first 3 weeks, but now it seems like DVH has settled on his lineup, and That's something that Arkansas is dangerous 1 through 9. So curious, when you look at the lineup, what are the names that really stick out to you and that really jump off the page? And obviously, you're going to probably say the Aloy brothers or Davalon. You could go through 1 to 9, but I'm curious when you kind of isolate in and take a deeper dive on this team, who's the name that really maybe fans don't necessarily think of that is the biggest impact in this lineup?
Well, I think it's Cam Koziel, and certainly you mentioned some other guys that have great years, but Cam Koziel's filling a niche at first base that they didn't have. He's bringing a big bat. Obviously, he had a big weekend last weekend at his former school, Vanderbilt. But he seems to connect the upper part of the lineup to the bottom part of the lineup. Justin Thomas and those guys have done a good job down there as well, getting on base. Justin showed a little power. But I think he's kind of the mesh that makes everything going in that usually 5 to 6 spot, depending on where they're batting. And it has lengthened that lineup and also given them an option over at first base that they didn't have. They had a lot of options, but not one that was good and what they needed at the time.
I want to circle back to the first base stuff because I thought that was really interesting in the beginning. So we'll get back to that. But I actually want to go with Charles Davalon on that answer. I think that you kind of saw, we were talking to Kendall Diggs early this season, and he kept referencing that, Davalon's going to be a guy that's going to surprise a lot of Hog fans. He has this Tavian Josenberger. That's what Diggs was saying earlier in the year, where it's you go, we go. And the last couple of weeks, really since this team came back from Arlington, it's been that theme of Charles Davalon has gone. He's at 402 is his batting average. And I think he's second on the team now in home runs, maybe third, depending on what's happened over the last weekend. But as he's gone, the rest of the team's gone. And again, when you can get your leadoff guy who has a little bit of flash of power, but more importantly, just constantly gets on base and just is constantly hitting the ball, it's something that's key for the guys like Logan Maxwell, Kahio, and Vahiva Aloy to get Davalon over and in and to score runs early. And that's what this team's been doing. They did it against Vanderbilt all weekend. They did it against whoever they played a couple of nights ago in Little Rock, which I'm blanking on right now, Grambling. So it's been really fun to watch Davalon at the top of that order.
Yeah, and he's an interesting kid in that he's from Quebec up there and went to Florida. Now he's here at Arkansas, and to use his language, oui, to Tambacout fromage. He's been a spark plug up there at the top, like you said, and you said a little bit of power, but also he has done a really good job in the outfield as well. And the outfield, let's just be honest, last year did not give you what they needed to offensively, and really there were times that you couldn't get in defensively. It has been interesting that obviously Kendall Diggs, one of the better players during his time here, although he struggled last year, can't get in the lineup because of the guys that have come along. But yeah, Davalon is interesting. He when he gets in the box and starts doing that Juan Soto stuff, you better get ready.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to touch on when he talked about Kojal in that first base battle earlier this season. When he talked about Kendall Diggs, the question was, is he going to play in the outfield? Because they were putting him at first base, coming off the injury, didn't really know how he would be in the field. They were testing him at first base, and then all of a sudden, he makes the opening day start. He's ready, doesn't hit very well. Then they kind of plug in Cam Kojal, and I was thinking that Kojal would almost beat out Nolan Souza at second base. But the reality is, Kojal beat out Kendall Diggs when it came to that final spot that they were deciding on, when they were like, okay, Kojal, second base by nature, but you can play first base. And clearly, because the bat is there with Kojal and not with Diggs, which is really unfortunate because I don't think any Arkansas fan wanted to see Diggs end his time as a Razorback, kind of in this role where he'll make some midweek starts and that's about it. But the reality is that this lineup is too deep, and Kendall, just like you said, can't break through the lineup. And it's something that's really interesting to see the impact of Cam Kojal.
You're always trying to over-recruit what you have here. And I still believe in Kendall. I think somewhere along the line he's going to have a big hit. That's been his norm over these years, just not going away from him right now. You've got to play when you're number 2 in the country, when you're tied at the top in a 4-way tie in the SEC. You got to keep doing what you've been doing, and you got to keep running those guys out. That's whether it's high school, college, professional. And I think that's what they're doing right now. They've got a, kind of a set lineup. You have it bounce back and forth. Back to the first base thing, I went to all the fall scrimmages, and it was open tryouts. You had Michael Anderson, who's the biggest first baseman over there. You had Reese Robinette. You had Kendall Diggs. You had, and now I'm drawing a blank.
Rocco Pepe, yeah.
Yeah, Rocco Pepe, and just a different variety of people over there just trying to fight their way. Even Kahua Aloy was over there a little bit, and they ended up just, Koziel wasn't over there hitting, and now he's the starting first baseman. So fall helps you figure out some stuff, but also you have to continue to fit the jigsaw puzzle. And that's why Coach Van Horn and his program has been so good over the years. They've taken things and put them together in a manner that doing what's right as you go along. Not, sometimes you have to put, towards it, the square peg in the round hole.
Yeah, and for some reason it just decided to work when you move a second baseman who's maybe not the tallest guy. When you think of Michael Anderson, Rocco Pepe's got a lot more size than Cam Kojal, but at the end of the day, if you can hit, you're going to find your way in the lineup, and I think that's something that you hear in baseball, any level, whether that's preschool, middle school, high school, college, the pros. If you can hit the ball, you're going to find your way in the lineup, and that's what Kendall Diggs, Cam Kojal.
Yeah, there's no saying if you hit, you won't sit.
Exactly. I'm curious too. Can you say that in French, or do we already get just as much French as you know?
I took it in college, and I've got a few sayings, but mostly those are related to romantic with my wife, Paige.
maybe one day we can get some French lessons from Charles Davlon. That would be really fun. But as we move forward, I do want to talk about the pitching before we talk about the Missouri series this weekend. Zach Root has continued to look better and better week in and week out. Has clearly emerged as the Friday guy and the ace of this team. But really, it's kind of questions around him, and really it's the Saturday question of what's going on with Gabe Gackle. What, in your opinion, kind of did you see this past weekend at Vandy that makes you kind of take a deep breath out and say, okay, he's going to be the guy. Just give him a little bit more time to transition into the starter role?
Well, I think he slowed down a little bit mentally, and I think that he's overthinking it. When you are put forth as the SEC pitcher of the year in the preseason, by the voters, and you are talked about as a high draft pick, those can work on your head sometimes. Hagen Smith even struggled at times when he was here early on before he kicked it in. And I think Gabe's going to be okay because of his stuff. Now, it's location. It was drifting over the middle of the plate. People were just hammering it, especially early on, so he wasn't getting very many innings. I think getting out of the first inning a couple of weeks ago at South Carolina without it being too crazy gave him the opportunity to kind of reset his mind. And I think he's looking like he's going to start pitching better. It's all about location. I do like the fact that both the hitting coach and the pitching coach are in the dugout now, and you could talk in between innings, different things like that. I think he's going to be okay. It's interesting. Landon had a couple of innings last week. These guys are, for the most part, the vast majority of innings, pitching the ball well, locating it well. They'll have one blow-up inning. That's what you got to stay away from in SEC play, especially against the teams that you're playing every week. This may be the closest thing to a layup you have this weekend in Missouri. They're 0-9, but at the same time, they're coming off 2 days this week where they beat UAPB 25-10 and 8-7. There was a good crowd, but it was half beer night up there. And so they've got a little, at least confidence coming in after those 2 games. You got to at least get 2, and it would be advantageous for you in a situation where you're up at the top tied to get all 3. And you got Georgia and Texas playing this weekend, so there could be some different looks up there at the end of the week.
Yeah, you're 2 for Carrick Jackson, and it's a team, again, like you mentioned, 0-9 in SEC play, really haven't found their footing, and they've had a lot of really hard series so far. They started at LSU, then they played Ole Miss, and then they just played Texas. And even in that Ole Miss series, it seems to be a trend with Ole Miss where teams can put up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 runs. Because in those 3 losses to Ole Miss, when Ole Miss swept the series against Mizzou, Mizzou put up 6 runs, 10 runs, and then 6 runs. So the offense is there, and it kind of feels like it is. And it's a familiar face, really anchoring, I should say familiar face, but familiar name to Razorback fans, really anchoring that Mizzou lineup in Jackson Lovich. And he's a guy who's a sophomore shortstop. We saw glimpses of him last year when he played against Ross, his brother, who was here at Arkansas. And Arkansas last year swept that series. Do you expect the same thing this year for the Razorbacks to get off hot? Because it's not that great of a Missouri team outside of him when, some of their starters have higher ERAs. And, again, they're giving up double-digit runs in almost every one of these losses.
Yeah, I give their coach a lot of credit, and obviously they're 0-9, but he answers the bell after every game, be it loss, win, whatever. He's trying to transform the program. That's something that they really have needed to do since Ian Kinsler was around back in the day. Mm-hmm. I give him a lot of credit. He's one of my favorite guys in the league to interview, and I hope it turns around for him, but I'm sure Razorback fans hope that starts next weekend. Another series this weekend, man, Tennessee and Texas A&M would have been the thing this weekend if Texas A&M hadn't just fallen off the map. When are they going to wake up? They're going to wake up, but when are they going to?
That's a great question, and I think it's got to be soon. They're getting a little bit more healthy. Caden Sorrell is on his way back for the Aggies, so it's looking up for Texas A&M, which is the good news. And I think it's a little bit of a problem when you look at Arkansas because of just the gauntlet of the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Because you're going to see Texas, you're going to see LSU. You end the season with Tennessee. You've got Florida on the schedule. Not to mention as well, like we've already said, Texas A&M is coming up. So you're almost, through that first half of the schedule. And it's kind of similar as last year where they were able to cruise early on in conference play. And then you face some of those top teams. Last year, you could go to the series in Kentucky. That was a really hard series for them. And Texas A&M was a tough series for them. And luckily, all they had to do was get one win to secure the SEC West. But it just seems like the schedule for Arkansas, like you've already mentioned, like this is it. This is your last easy weekend. And then you go right to Georgia next week, which should be a phenomenal series.
Yeah, we all know that it's great to be up in the polls, to get the publicity. It helps recruiting, different things like that. But we also know that these last 3 years have not been what Arkansas wanted them to be in terms of finishing up. And that's what they've got to point toward. And Coach Van Horn and his staff have talked about that a lot. You've got to be playing your best baseball at the end because that's what they remember you for.
And the good news for Arkansas, at least right now, is in the midseason D1 postseason projections, there is no team that's going to be wearing purple as of right now from the Big 12 that will be coming to the Fayetteville Regional. Right now, they're the 2 seed. It's really interesting because Ole Miss would be the 15 seed, so that would be the super potentially. But there is no purple team right now, so that is the good side.
Hey, Kansas State's played really well since they left, since they played Arkansas. Kudos to them.
Yeah, right now, K-State was projected to, I believe, be the 9th national seed, so they would host a home regional. Again, I think that's music to all Hog fans here. So let's shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about softball before we go because they've got a massive series coming up against Florida on the road in Gainesville. Curious for you, again, we've kind of seen it felt like the last 2 weeks that this Arkansas team is finally clicking because maybe they've just finally figured out how to win some of these big games that they weren't able to do early in the season at Ole Miss and against Oklahoma. But now it seems like some of these younger players have that experience. Peyton Burnham's looked really good. Ella McDowell just hit that walk-off on Sunday to give them, not walk-off, but game winner, kind of the same. Game winner. So for you, what's key right now for Courtney Deifel's team?
Well, I think it's the pitching. Early on in the year, they were winning and doing the run rules and all that, but you worried a little bit about Peyton Burnham being in a bit situation like UCLA. They got on her. UCLA is a great club. Mm-hmm. Now she's pitching great, and it's tough. You have 2 aces. It looks like to me now with her and Robin Herron. And I don't want to diminish what Cam Harrison's done, Reese Burline, the others who have come in and pitched. But those are 2 people that you can go out there and think every weekend. Tennessee has, their ace. The others have their aces. But if you could bring 2, and we know that Oklahoma can, but this race, as strange as it sounds, they were 1-5. Now they're 6-6, mm-hmm. and just 3 games out of the lead. Now there's a bunch of teams in between them, but you have corrected, the slide, and even though you're playing against great teams, and these last 2 weekends have been great for them. This will be a big weekend, as you said as well, because we know Florida's always a great program. And you're in an SEC where if you're 8th out of 16 teams, you're playing pretty well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned it, and it's the same in baseball as it is in softball, where the entire SEC, even if you are on the bottom half of the league, you can still easily get to the top because the talent is there top to bottom. But when we look at this Florida series, to you, who's the player in the lineup that's going to be key this weekend? Is it going to be Bree Ellis, Courtney Day, Ella McDowell, or someone maybe that we're not thinking of at the bottom or really the top of the order that could have that big hit somewhere and make the difference? And instead of getting one game, they end up winning the series in Gainesville.
Yeah, I'm going with Reagan Johnson. I think she's a great player. Obviously, the speed is evident whether she's in the outfield. Made some great plays out there this weekend, and she started to get things going. I think she's stolen 14 bases in 14 attempts now. We'll say that, although she did get out for leaving early once. Mm-hmm. But I do think that she's the catalyst. She's the one that gets them going, and she's playing with a chip on her shoulder because she didn't. She was all conference last year and then didn't get even a preseason nod this year. And I do think she's coming around, and, the slapping, it's you have to be a great player to do that. And when you can, it just elevates everybody else. I mean, I think I wrote on a tweet or X or whatever we're calling it these days that she swinging bunt. She got on, stole second, went to third on a wild pitch and scored on a ground out to the pitcher. So that speed is something that not a lot of other teams have, and I think she can really factor in this weekend.
If Reagan Johnson just hits the ball and just chops down on it 10 feet up in the air, she's going to be safe no matter what. There was, one play this weekend where she beat out a ground ball to second base, and you're like, I don't think any normal baseball or softball player is supposed to do that, but Reagan Johnson is all speed, which is a lot of fun to watch. So that series, again, they're in Gainesville this weekend. Dudley, anything else you want to go over before we let you go?
I just think we almost got past mentioning Bree Ellis. What a unbelievable year she's having. She's the greatest quote on campus. She's the greatest follow of my social media.
Yeah.
I love the competitiveness she shows on there. But what an awesome year. She's having the best year. I'd say this. She's having the best year of any athlete on campus during this school calendar year. But it's kind of hidden a little bit. You don't hear much about it because we're so used to her hitting a home run, so used to her driving in 5 runs that it's just normal now instead of having this fantastic season.
Anytime she puts the ball in the air, every time I think of go out of the park. That's getting out of the park. That's getting out of the park. That's just how dangerous she is. And when you have that 3-4 combo of her, Courtney Day, Kaylee Wyckoff at 5, it's a really fun lineup to watch and really explosive in the middle. And again, it's all because of Bree and how well she's doing, not only at the plate, but also in the field, being, the top first baseman so far in college softball through the middle of the season. She's been really fun to watch.
Adding Courtney Day as the last player to the roster was big, huh? She came in January, and that's she's been a big catalyst there in the middle as well.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah, Texas transfer, was at Ole Miss last year, didn't play, and so now she's getting her shot. She just had senior day a couple of days ago, which was a really awesome moment, seeing her with her family walk on the field and get flowers and get the praise, because she has been kind of like Cam Koshel. Courtney Day has kind of been the glue of the Arkansas softball lineup, which has been really fun. But Dudley, that's going to do it for right now. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Always appreciate Dudley when he comes on giving his insight. Nobody with better baseball or softball knowledge in the area than Dudley Dawson. So big thanks to Dudley for that. But again, Arkansas taking on Missouri here in Fayetteville. We'll talk about that really quickly because everybody's wondering about this weather. It's supposed to be really bad. I'm even curious about it. I was talking to Josh Rugger, our KNWA and Fox 24 weather guy this morning, and he was telling me that, Evan, it's not looking good for tomorrow. Straight up. Said, Josh, don't lie to me. Look me in my face and tell me the truth. Are we going to get this game in? And he said, Evan, there's a chance if they push this game up between this window of about 11 o'clock to 2 p.m., there's a chance they could get this game in. But then from about 2:30, 3 o'clock to about 10 o'clock at night, we're going to get really bad storms. So that's something that Dudley and I talked about really early on when we were chatting, is the weather. That's a big question here in Fayetteville. Will they be able to get the games in? We don't know that. As of right now, if it was up to me, I'd say there's about 30% chance they get this game in tomorrow. But again, we'll see. At the time of me recording this outro, everything is status quo. The game will first pitch at 7 o'clock tomorrow for baseball against Missouri. So we'll see what happens there. Softball on the road. That series weather-wise looking good. Florida, gorgeous as always. Gainesville should be a lot of fun. Maybe our Courtney Mammons has 2 cents on what's going to happen there. Maybe you just got to tune into the Pig Trail Nation report and find out what she's got to say about that series. But hey, that's going to do it for the first episode of the Rubber Match. I hope you all had fun at home watching this and as much fun as I had here doing this. Can't wait to be back. We'll be back in 2 weeks after that Georgia series to recap it. Maybe I'll have a special episode next week. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it from Florida. I'm on vacation next week, so I'll let you guys know. But we'll keep you posted on that. That's going to do it, like I said, for the Rubber Match. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple of weeks right back here.